It's a heavy job, but somebody's got to do it. See how the project comes together.
Ironing out the details of a job wrought with possibilities.
And columns add a dramatic touch to any room. It's all coming up on Gimmie Shelter.
Hello, I'm Robin Kipp.
And I'm Harvey. Now, our homeowners on today's episode of Gimmie Shelter own and operate several businesses out of this building. They've also been on a search for their dream house over the past several years, a search which has taken them ultimately to their own backyard, quite literally.
That's because this is work and this is home. In keeping with the neighborhood, this 4-story federal-style home will look like it was built in the late 1800s.
Now, part of the work we'll see today is wrought iron gates and railings. Now, not only will we get to see how they're made, but we'll also see them installed.
But the Williams aren't just looking back. This house will feature some very modern amenities, like a spectacular master bath.
And get this, there's an elevator in this house because, as you may have noticed, it's an extremely tall house.
But let's not forget the best part. The commute is all of 10 steps.
We've got a great show for you today, so stay with us. Now, this is Tony Miller from J.T. Turner, the general contractor. And Tony, your job is the superintendent.
That's right.
So you're on site every day making sure everything goes right.
To the best of my ability, yes.
Yeah. And you've been, now how long have, bring us up to date, how long have you guys been working on this house?
About 8 months now.
Yeah?
About 8 months, and we're finally seeing the end. About a month to go, and we'll be done.
This is a big project.
Yeah, it's a pretty good-sized house.
Total square feet, how many?
3,900, 1,500 on this floor.
Now, we're in the back of the house, right?
That's correct.
Am I oriented correctly
Right.
here?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a kind of an open space here off of the breakfast area, maybe?
Right, yeah. Gallery is what they've called it on the plans. But...
And we're heading into the dining room here.
That's correct.
Nice formal feel in here because
Right.
you've got the fireplace
Right.
over there. And then we keep on moving. This is now into what's the
Living
formal
room.
living room
Right.
in here. That's great. Oh, another fireplace.
Another fireplace.
Now, these are gas-fired?
Yes, they are. We had picture mold, if you can see the chalk lines, and at the last minute it was up and they eliminated it. So,
Really?
Yeah, apparently they've got a lot of artwork they want to hang and afraid it was not high enough and would be in the way, so we took it down.
It always changes. Let's go
Yeah,
upstairs. Tony, these are great, nice, wide stairs, I noticed, throughout the house. A lot of space, nice, big, wide hallway
Right,
here, too.
yeah. It's going to be a nice home.
You really used the space well. We've got closets nearly. Well, that's no closet, Tony.
No, that would be the elevator.
That would be the world's longest closet. Got an elevator, huh?
Right, yeah, well, if you're going 4 stories, you don't want to walk it every day.
Now, Tony, wait, what the heck is this?
Well, this is going to be a sitting room. I think they'll put their TV, maybe stereo, whatever in here.
You know what's great about this house is that it meanders so much. You know, you wander around and you just keep coming into more and more rooms.
A lot of levels, a lot of rooms.
That's great. Let's get up to the 3rd floor here. Now, Tony, this is the master suite, right?
Right, this is sitting room here.
Okay. And what's that little alcove back in there?
That'll be his office. He'll put a desk there, his computers and all that.
So this, the main bedroom?
Main bedroom, that's right.
Master closet in there.
That's right.
And here's this other fireplace we talked about. That's real pretty. What's the opening up there, Tony?
Well, there'll be a TV there, and the interesting thing is they'll have a picture mounted over that hole on tracks. And they tell me it's motorized, and when they turn on the TV, the picture will roll out of the way.
Get out of Dodge.
And then turn it back off, and you don't know it's there.
Isn't that cool?
That is going to be nice.
All right, let's head into the bathroom here. Tony, in here, now we've got the master bath.
Right.
And it's a big room.
Yes, it is.
A lot of stuff in here. Well, we got this great whirlpool up on its own nice deck there. His and her vanities.
Right.
So you got plenty of room to spread out all your stuff. And I'd say this is a big shower.
Yeah, I'd say it's tremendous.
Something great to look at in almost every room in this house. Thanks for taking us through the tour.
No problem.
I mean, look, here's another great feature right here, these great pocket doors. Everywhere you look, there's something in this house. Meanwhile, we're going downstairs. Robin's busy putting in columns. Let's go check that out.
There are going to be decorative columns throughout the house. We're going to have a pair right here at the entrance to the living room, and we'll also have a pair right here in the area that separates the dining room from the living room. I'm here with Larry Parrish from Southern Builders. How are you doing?
Doing great.
And the first thing we're going to do is make our measurements. So you have the tape here, and you'll notice we have the capitals here. We're making our measurements from the header to the top of the two capitals combined. What do you have there?
I have 87 and 11/16.
87 and 11/16. This is a finger jointed column, which makes it a paint grade. Now you could stain it, but it would really bring out those finger joints, and that wouldn't look too great. The first thing we need to do here is trim off the top, and we're going to use a circular saw to do that. There we go. All right, now we're ready to glue the cap to the column. And what we're using, believe it or not, is just wood glue. And we'll put a bead right around the top. All right, that's about right. And now we'll take the column and we'll line up one of these. If you'll notice these lines that run up the column, we're going to line it up right here. It's okay if the glue runs out because we can wipe that up. And we're going to secure it with some nails. And we have an air gun, or a gas gun here, which is terrific because we don't have to deal with a cord. And I just put a bead of glue around the bottom here. And we'll line up our marks. We'll line right here from the finger joints on the column. Okay. Okay. Moment of truth, it's time to see if our column will fit. Looks good. Now we had made our measurements. We want this 8 inches from the door jamb. And once we get this into place, once again, we're going to use our nail gun, and we're going to tack this into place on the header and at the base. Once we've secured this capital, this column will be in place. Then we'll only have to do 5 more on the first floor and 6 on the second.
Next, crucial measurements to keep our project on budget.
As we mentioned earlier, our homeowners don't have a long commute to work. Here they are. This is Rose.
Hi, Robin.
And Jeff Williams. How are you doing?
Good.
Tell me, how long have you been working right here?
In this office, we've had it for about 6 years.
So when did you decide to build a house right next door to it?
Well, a couple of years ago, we had become very active downtown and decided we wanted to live here. And we looked around at some of the existing homes, and since we had this property, we decided to just go ahead and build on it.
Now, it's one of the newer homes in the area.
That's correct, yes.
Tell me about that.
The majority of the new homes are townhomes, duplexes, that type. So we're pretty excited about it.
You know, I noticed in the master bath that there are these tiles, beautiful painted tiles. Where did they come from?
Well, we met Catherine Sandoz, who's the artist that did that, at a reception for her art here in town. And we bought them. We had no idea what we would do with them. So when we built this house, that seemed an appropriate place to put something with a fish in it.
Well, it's looking beautiful, but I better let you get back to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
Now, here in the kitchen, we're getting ready for countertop installation. Now, there's a lot of choices you can make for countertops, but what the homeowners have decided to do in here is go with granite. And it's an increasingly popular choice these days. A lot of people really love the look of a natural product like granite. But there's a lot of steps to get to before you're ready to install your countertops. And we're working here with John Bryant from Creative Stone. Hi, John.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And you're templating now. That's what this process is called. You're cutting out the templates. Let's start at the very most basic level. Tell us what a template is and why you use it.
A template represents each piece of stone that we're going to put in the kitchen. The main reason that we use templates are to get away from errors that could be made actually doing measurements and things. In the real world, it would be nice if everything was square and perfect, but it is not. So by doing templates, that allows us to correct for any small irregularities.
So if the cabinets were, for some reason, running a little out of true, when you're setting up your template, you'd pick that up, you'd know it. And so when you take this back, this is an exact shape of what you want your stone to be.
That is correct. This is a cardboard replica of the piece of stone that I'll be bringing back next month.
Is this just some sort of fiberboard that you're using for your template material?
Actually, it's a type of house wrap.
Oh, is it?
It's a waterproof cardboard is basically what it amounts to.
Okay. So tell me, the first process then is you sort of lay these out and you set them down on your countertops, every place where you're going to want to put the
Correct.
granite. Do you decide where your seams are going to go then as you're templating?
Typically, during the bidding process, that is when the seams are decided, the location of the seams. That's something that's discussed with the clients.
Could you do this whole thing without a seam? That wouldn't be possible, would it?
Probably not. I think this piece would exceed the size of the slab, but
Right.
we could possibly come to a point such as this point, do this as one giant piece with a small piece on the end.
But that's going to add to the cost.
Adds greatly to the cost because of the waste factor and the size of the pieces you have to work in.
Now, we see a lot of your notes that you've made on the template here. Explain some of them. I mean, we can see that this is indicated that there's going to be a seam here. Now, this is a rad for master. What the heck does that mean?
That actually means radius for the master. The master is the name of the router that we use. We didn't name it that. That's the company named it that.
Right.
But the fabricators will add a radius on this inside corner that matches the toucher wheel of that router.
Now, Johnny, here's a part of your code that even I can decipher. It says sink, so I'm betting there's a sink going here.
That is correct.
All right. This is the little sink, right? There's two sinks in this kitchen.
Yes,
right?
this will be the vegetable sink for the kitchen.
Okay. And over here, we've got the larger sink. You're telling me it's a two-bowl?
It's a two-bowl main sink.
And they're going with stainless steel sinks in this
They are
kitchen.
both stainless steel undermounts.
How many pieces total? How many different pieces of stone are we dealing with here?
In this kitchen, we're looking at about 10 pieces plus backsplashes.
All right. And how long will it take you from where we are today with the templates? How long until all the work is done and your fabricating's finished?
Anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks.
Is that right? So you can turn around pretty fast.
Pretty quickly, yes.
You know, it even goes so far as that your templating is marked underneath here. You've got a complete tracing
That is
of
correct. I have
the cabinet.
a complete tracing of the cabinets both inside and out. That way, if for any reason the customer wants to change a sink or location or anything like that, we should have all the information there at the shop to relocate and go.
Because you don't want to be making mistakes in stone.
No, it is way too expensive to be cutting things twice.
All right, well, thanks, John. And later in the show, we're going to come back and we're going to see these granite countertops installed.
Here we are in the master bathroom where we have made a lot of headway in the construction. As you can see, we've already put in a raised platform jacuzzi, so just 2 steps and you're in. We've also installed a his and her vanity on either side of the entranceway. But what we're working on today is the shower. And with me is Gordy Cox from J&L Glass. How are you doing? And he is installing a frameless door unit.
That's correct.
We were talking about some glass that's going to be pretty thick and heavy.
3/8 glass.
And that's going to be pretty high. What are some concerns if you're installing something so heavy?
Well, that's what you have to use the thicker glass because when you go, we're going all the way to the ceiling,
And what height are we talking about here?
about 106 inches.
Okay.
So we're going all the way to the ceiling. Now the door, we have to put a transom over the door because they only make the door panel 84 inches. And it's a wide door, it's a 36-inch door opening, so you can only go so high. The glass will start to bow and belly if you do otherwise.
So what are you doing today?
We're going to measure this shower opening, and they haven't finished the tile, but we can still, with the track on the door, we can allow that.
For air, a little room for air?
You got the track's a 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick, so we can allow that to get in there, and then we can deduct for our glass.
Well, I'm going to let you get measuring.
Thank you, Robin.
You could throw a small party in this shower, but installing it is a big job, as you'll see coming up next.
The master bedroom suite is nearly finished, and you can see it's really come a long way. Rose wanted this sitting room to look a little bit more masculine, so she chose a deeper, richer color, like a patchwork plum is what this one is called. And you can see it's a darker color, brings things down a bit. Here's the columns that we installed earlier, and they've been painted and they're installed and ready to go. And here is the bedroom, and you can see it's a nice big room, lots of space. And you'll notice over here the light switches are a lot lower than the standard light switches, and in fact they're handicap accessible. The Williams wanted them down here so that they wouldn't take your eye away from the beautiful artwork they're going to be hanging on this wall right here. And here is the master bathroom, finally. You'll remember earlier we were showing you how we were just measuring for the shower stall, and here it is, all complete and installed, and it looks beautiful. And we're going to show you how that happened. Now this was really heavy glass. 5 guys were working in there at one time, at one point.
Suction cups will pick up 500 pounds. It's
Each?
500 pounds. Each suction cup will hold as much as 500 pounds if you can pick that up. First of all, we start with the header material, Robin. We have to anchor the header material. Then we come down and do the wall jambs and the sill, and then we start putting the glass in place.
Dry fitting, in fact.
Dry fitting to make sure everything lines up, because you hardly ever get plumb openings, and you really have to allow for all that. We cut them a little longer, and then we'll cut and shave and just get them to where we can align with the plumb bob itself. We marked all our pieces, and then we pre-drilled everything. On the door application itself, the maximum height for a door is 84 inches. That's why you have the transom look over the top of the door itself. So it is a heavier door, and we had to go with heavier hinges. You have to wait until you get everything aligned as good as possible, and then you come in there and put your rubber gaskets in there, because once it's in there,
That's it.
It's in there. Yeah, it's a mess to pull it out. And then you come in there and then caulk around the gold fixtures itself, and that's it.
It's all in the prep work. You'll see what we mean when Gimmie Shelter comes right back.
Now outside here, this is the ground floor wall of the building, and the look we're trying to achieve here is of enormous masonry blocks, and this was accomplished using stucco over the foundation material of concrete blocks, the normal 12-inch concrete blocks. The way they got these long lines in the workable stucco was using levels throughout and finding marks on either end of the building, and then take a long chalk line, snap a chalk line so you've got a real straight line to work through, a visual aid, and then with a raking tool, a joining trowel, you rake these long joints in and you create the look of a giant masonry block. Before you get to the point though where you can put the stucco on the building, there's several steps that have to happen, and Gimmie Shelter's troubleshooter, Tony Buck, will show us what that's all about.
Theoretically, you could just stucco this concrete block wall just as it is. but the stucco wouldn't stay on there very long. So standard practice in the industry is to use this metal lath on the wall first. And that's put on using short masonry nails, which are helped on with this magnetic punch. And we put them on like that, we hold it up to the wall, and we just bang it in place like that. And we do that all over the lath so that it holds in place. And this metal lath helps the stucco mixture to stick into the lath and hold itself on the wall. And that also increases the strength tremendously by reinforcing the stucco. Then we scratch coat that, we put the brown coat on top of that, and in this case, we're going to put a very nice finish on top of it, which will help seal the cracks and make this have long life. So we need to do this before we move to the next step.
Now, as we talked about before, we had to get the wall prepped and ready to go before we actually jumped in and began to put our scratch coat on. And with the preparation of this metal lath, this mason's lath on the wall, now you could put the stucco directly on here, but what this does is gives you a lot better chance that this stucco is going to stay on here. The last thing you want to do is be coming back and fixing something where your stucco is separating from the base material. So Paul, you're already halfway done. The amount of time it took me to tell him about that. Boy, you do work fast.
I'm slowed down.
Oh, you got to slow down for me? So now this is our scratch coat going on.
This is scratch coat going on.
Okay.
And this last just gives you added protection for the stucco in future years. It'll make it last long.
And how long have you been doing this?
54 years.
54 years. So conceivably you could be called back to a job you did 35, 40 years ago. You don't want to do that.
Believe me, we do go back and check on something we've done 15 years ago.
Is that right?
And
they hold up pretty well, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right.
With all the callbacks on a inferior job,
yeah,
we've never had a callback.
Is that right?
No, sir.
You've never been called back. Well,
never been called back.
Your system's working then. Now, Paul, while you keep working there, I don't want to slow you down because we're working in the sun. Tell me about the material you're using. Now, you've got an extra additive in this.
We have some fiber glass strands that gives it an extra.
But there's some of it over here. Wait.
That is the material.
There's a bag of this stuff, and you just throw it right in the mix.
Right in the mix with the water at the beginning.
Now, I don't know if you can see, they're little tiny hairs, basically, and they really, you can see it in the mix as you put it on, too.
Right.
It looks like little hairs. Now, that gives it strength, right?
You can see it there in the edge of that material.
Oh, look at it. Here we go, right here on the edge of your trowel.
Yeah, just...
See those hairs right in there? It's all in the mix. And now they give a lot of extra strength.
A lot of extra strength.
So our next step with the brown coat set up enough is we're ready to start putting in some of these lines. Now we're using a tool of Paul's devising. Paul, you looks like you made that.
Just make it out of a piece of banding material and some tape and a little stick.
And with that, and with your level,
you cut a level line and then come back and brush the lines out. But that cuts pretty good. Just made out of a piece of banding material.
A piece of old banding that would tie together lumber or block work.
Brick or lumber.
Right. And the whole purpose for scratching these lines in again is we're simulating an older look of block, like so many of the houses that were built in this district.
Yeah, they've been scoring these houses for 150 years like this, and we're just trying to match it up.
Paul's going to continue dressing these joints here, just lightly brushing them, take some of the edge off and a little bit of that extra material out of each joint. This material will have to set up, and when it's completely set up, Then the next step is the finish coat. Now that's that synthetic stucco that goes on complete with color already in it.
We've all tried to make paint color choices from a small dab of paint in a paint chart, and sometimes that can be a disaster. So we asked our builders to come up with a very large sample this time so we could get the finish right first time. Now in this situation, not only the homeowner has to sign off on this, but the Historical Preservation Society too. And this is the best way to show them what it's going to look like, because if they don't like it, it all has to be redone again. So this is the best way to show them a great finish.
We've come out to Shaw Manufacturing Wrought Iron Works to make the front gates for the Williams residence. Let's take a look inside. The front of the shop is where the wrought iron is stored, and it comes in 24-foot lengths. It's really convenient because you take it from here, you bring it over to this machine where we punch and cut it, and I'm with Leon here, who is making the gate for the Williams. Now, right here you'll see the sketch. This is the gate that's going to be made. Tell me a little bit about the sketch.
Well, basically, this is just a diagram of the whole gate system. And here's the measurements. The gate is supposed to be 90 inches tall, and the width of it is 39 3/8. But being that it's a gate, you got a hinge system. You would have to take off 2.5 inches for the hinge.
So you have to account for 2.5 inches because the hinge is going to need that space to be there. Okay. We'll be making our cuts and punches with this machine. Now this is a heavy-duty machine. It can make punches right through 3/4-inch wrought iron, which is a pretty big deal. And what a punch is you take some wrought iron and you actually punch a hole. It can be a square or it can be a circle. And that's what we're going to be doing right now. Now that we've cut and punched our frame, and you can see the punches right through here, we've done the top, the bottoms, and the sides. We're ready for the pickets. And the pickets will be going right through these punches. They're going to be cut at 90-inch lengths, and that's what we need to do next. This is genuine wrought iron, and a lot of people nowadays are buying aluminum and painting it and making it look like wrought iron, but just by the weight of it, you can tell the difference. Now we want to take our pickets and our frames and bring them all to the back table where we're going to lay out our gate. We're at the table where we are going to lay out our gate. The first thing we're going to do is use our measuring tape and make marks directly on the table with chalk as to where things should end up.
1/8.
36 1/8?
Yes.
All right. Then we'll get the other side. Here it is. That should be it. Leon just has a little more work to do here. He's going to put the hinges on this custom-made wrought iron gate, and a little later on in the show, we're going to see this gate being installed back at the Williams house.
We're ready for the steps, ready for the granite. Gimmie Shelter is shifting into high gear next.
Now what I'm walking in right here is a kind of a courtyard area between the new house and where the homeowners work. And they're going to turn this into a really nice garden. Keep in mind work and home are this close to each other, so they're trying to make that transition really work well in here. Now, another job that's almost complete on this house is the stucco work, except for one area where they haven't even started. Why? Well, let's go to troubleshooter Tony Buck and find out.
This property is great. We've got walls which contain all the stages of stucco. Here we have the scratch coat with the lath underneath it. This is our first coat. And over here, we have the second coat, or the brown coat, which has been troweled to a very flat finish. And then the mason has put these lines in it to replicate large block. That's a look in this neighborhood that he wanted to get. Then, further along, up here, we have an elastomeric finish, which is a flexible stucco, which has got silicone in it, which when the stucco starts to dry and maybe crack a little bit, it will bridge the cracks. And that's a really nice thing because you won't have to repair it and it'll look great for a long time. Now look at this wall. This is the steps. This is a wall in the first stages before it's been stuccoed. And the mason's experience tells him, don't stucco this wall because there's some precast stone steps being made right now at the factory, which will fit on these blocks here. And these are all the same, but when we get to here, they have to be custom made to fit this shape. Each one is different. And if the builder's made his measurements right, they'll all fit when it comes in. And the mason knows that they're all going to vary just a little bit. So he wants to be able to position them first so that he can stucco up to them and make it look really nice. And when that's done, we're going to be putting in a beautiful wrought iron railing that'll go all the way up to the top to the door.
Why would you need a crane this big to install steps? Well, that's what we're about to find out. I'm here with Tom Roberts from Roberts & Son, and he is installing the front steps that go right up to the Williams residence. Tom, I know these are made of crushed limestone and a white cement, but how are they made?
They are, a form is made, and then the limestone and cement is mixed dry, just enough moisture to hold it together, and then it's packed into the form with an air hammer.
Tell me about the air hammer.
It's a rubber mallet on an impact hammer, and it's compacted into the form.
Okay, now, are there any difficulties in this job as compared to other jobs, or is there anything really different about this?
Well, this staircase has rounded at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And
this is one of the pieces right here.
Right. It has the radius has to be worked out to have your right angle on it.
Uh-huh. So it's a little bit different than the standard
than just straight steps
that I see over here. Now, we're using a crane, so these are pretty heavy. How much per step?
Probably 250 pounds.
So you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation for each step.
Right.
You're using cinder block there.
Right.
And that works out, that's enough to hold this up?
Filled. They're filled with concrete.
They're filled with concrete, so that makes it a more solid foundation. Now, one aspect with steps is that you want to make sure that they're plumb and level. And if you look here, these are just dry fitted right now, so they are not plumb and level. Now, you're using wedges to make sure that they are in line.
Right.
Regular wooden wedges?
Right, just a regular wooden wedge. You lift them up in place.
I see.
And straighten them up with the wedge.
Right, and then you come back with the Portland cement.
Right, and tuck point the mortar up underneath them.
From underneath, though. So we're going to be going around inside.
Right.
And cementing from under the steps.
Right.
All the way down.
Inside and out.
Up here, we have the top step, and you'll see that there is a gap between the archway and the top step, and we need to fill that in, and that's where the tucking and pointing comes in. The tools we're using is a pointing trowel, and we're using a regular trowel and the white cement. And what we're going to do, and Tom, if you'll show us, you're going to push the white cement into the gap and just fill it using the pointing tool, pushing it in. And what you want to make sure is it's nice and flush here with the wall. And we're going to continue to do this all the way down the steps. Well, the granite truck has just arrived for the countertop, so let's check in with Harvey.
Now, earlier, we got to see the templates being made up in the kitchen and for the bathrooms as well. Now, a couple of weeks have elapsed, and they've gone back to the shop and done all the manufacturing, finished all the edges, cut the outlines where they want them. And now, as you can see, the pieces have arrived on site and are being taken upstairs. Now, most of the pieces of the granite are up in the kitchen here. Several of them are just been set in place sort of in a dry fit. There's a couple more big ones yet to come up. And because we've got so many different angles and cuts, it would really be, I'd say, nearly impossible to pull these in one big piece of stone. You have a limit to the size of the stone for one, plus all the cuts. So we have several seams. Here's one right in front of me here. We have several seams in this application. The object being to make this look as seamless as we can. There's a couple of more to do over in this section. And in fact, there's an interesting problem that needed to be solved over here at the sink. Let's go take a look at that.
Give me some acetone, please, Mike.
Now, because we're assembling our countertop in various pieces here, we ended up with this piece of the puzzle left over, which is this relatively small front lip to the sink. And the solution for this is to bring this piece on site and then epoxy it. It's the only place where, if I'm correct, John, the only place where you're really epoxying the stone in place,
that
really
is correct.
gluing it.
Everything else is set with 100% silicone, gives a little bit of flex and movement.
Right. But this, because there's not, it's only resting on that little front lip.
That's correct.
There's
not a lot to support this piece.
So you glue it underneath, and you're also gluing the edges?
That is correct.
To each other? And this is a quick-set epoxy, you were saying?
Right. This will harden in about 5 minutes.
So you had some urgency in getting this piece in and getting it set up the way you want?
No playing around now.
Now, John, I saw you clean out the glue material in between the seams there. Didn't you want that in there to also...
That's just right at the surface so that the silicone has somewhere to go when I put the silicone in the seams.
Okay, so you're just making a little room for
That's correct.
The silicone to go in later. Because you'll put some color on the silicone?
That is correct.
You're hoping to blend the seams. At this point, our epoxy is nearly completely set up, and really we've done a great job of solving the problem around this kitchen sink. The rest of the countertop are in at this point, except for one piece, one really big piece, the largest and the heaviest one, which is waiting down on the truck, so let's go get it.
Just get on the other side and balance with it.
Now we have to cut out a notch in the wall here because our countertop goes straight back. We couldn't notch around that wall because that would leave you with a little tiny edge that might break off in the granite. So the granite goes straight. It's a lot easier to take out the drywall than it is to cut the granite.
The reason we notch the wall here is so that we don't have to place a small, fragile ear on the back of this large piece. We can notch the wall and slide the piece of granite into the sheetrock, and when everything's finished, it will give the appearance of having a half-inch ear returning around this wall. That's it.
We've got a bar sink that's going to go in this section of the counter. You can see that we've already, of course, got the hole cut in the granite, but a solid deck underneath, and we've got to cut that out. And in this case, since we're going to mount this sink underneath the counter, we'll cut out larger than this sink, a little bit bigger than the hole of the sink, and then using these clips supplied by the sink manufacturer, they'll go underneath. This will screw up into the plywood deck and hold our sink into place. So really the next step, let me get this out of the way, is to make the cutout for the faucets and for the sink hole itself. Following that, we'll of course then continue with our process of putting a bead of silicone caulk around all the edges of the granite that's still yet to be installed. Once that silicone's in place, we'll gently reset the counter back into place.
Okay. Let your hands go all the way down. Just let it go till it slides in your hand. There we go.
Now at this point, we've got our hole cut out for the bar sink or the vegetable sink. And so then the slab will go back down, actually our 3 pieces of granite go back down in position to sort of dry fit them, move them around a bit so that we can get the angles to line up. Now at one point, we're going to have to cut out that drywall in back of one of the areas of granite because it has to slide a little farther back in order for the seams to butt up properly. So we just chew out a little of the drywall material, move them around. Once they're in the place where they're supposed to go, then we'll get the silicone and run a bead of that all the way around the whole counter underneath area and put wedges on some of the low spots. Countertops aren't dead flat, and we want to make sure the low spots are supported because weight on that low area, it's conceivable you could end up cracking the stone. That's the last thing you want when you go to the expense of putting in this beautiful granite. So with all the shims in place and the silicone, we lay the stone back down and butt them up together and then let it set up good and snug. Well, there's a lot more Gimmie Shelter still to come, so don't go away.
Next, we're installing the wrought iron gate. Stay with us. Earlier we went to the wrought iron shop where we were seeing how our gate was being built. Well, it's built and it's ready to be installed, but it's very heavy, so I'm not alone. I have Harvey and Ronald to help me, and here they are.
How do we look?
You look like it's heavy.
It is heavy.
Yes.
It's nice and painted and ready to go. Our entryway is 17 inches across, so center is 8.5 inches. Ronald's marking 1/2 inch to the left and 1/2 inch to the right so that our hinge will sit center on this entryway.
Well, we're going to do that. We're going to put
How's that look, Ronald?
Basically what we're trying to do here is to get the gate to be flush with the top of the wall. The wall is nearly complete, but there's about another inch worth of material to go on the top. So what we've done is take a measurement down from the top of the gate, from this point down to here, which is where the top of our hinge piece sits. So we take this measurement, add an inch to it, and that's the mark that we've transferred over to the wall here. So now we'll hold up our hinge piece of steel into position, centering it on the wall.
How does that look?
And then make the marks in the holes. Here's the system that we're using to anchor our hinge to the wall here. It's basically a lead anchor. This is made of lead, which is a real soft metal. This will be driven into the large hole in the concrete, in the block, and then you'll screw this lag in, and as you screw the lag into the anchor, the lead anchor expands and locks into the mortar, and that's the system. All right, we've got our holes drilled here. I think we're finished.
So we're just going to take our lags and we're going to tack them into place. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. Depends on the situation. This seems to be going in pretty easily. I'd already put that one in. That's good. They're in place. We're ready for our hinge.
Now, as we screw this hinge in, keep in mind that what we're trying to do is anchor the hinge to the wall, but what we're really resisting is the downward pressure. So they just have to resist the shear of the gate, because most of the weight of the gate, it's a heavy gate, but we're not pulling out this way. That's why this lag anchor system works so well, because it's preventing it from falling down with the fall of gravity. All right, well, we're down to the moment of truth now.
Okay.
Let's see if we
can
hoist this into position here.
Okay. Make sure it lines up down here.
This is going to be tricky, I bet,
Okay.
because this is so heavy.
How does it look up there?
Oh, wait, we got lucky. Look at that.
There.
Popped right in.
Excellent.
Let's check it out. Wow, what do you think?
Oh, it looks great.
That's a great piece. Well, we have one more piece to complete our setup here, though. It's not been manufactured yet, and it's a special latching system that's being made up for this application so that this gate will be locked in place. And what a great statement this makes right in the center of this courtyard.
The Williams aren't just close to work, they're close to this beautiful park right here. You know, Harvey, we did some really neat projects here, including that frameless door unit in the master bathroom, and that turned out really well. It was a custom job and it was well worth it. That glass makes the master bath feel bigger and it looks like it's freestanding.
You know, another feature that I really liked at this house was all the wrought iron that went in. The gates and the railings outside here really were perfect for the federal style period of this house. Plus, it was really cool to see how they're fabricated back at the factory.
You know, another decorative feature that we installed were those columns. And you know, that's something that a homeowner can do. It's pretty easy, and it really adds a neat touch to the house.
Well, you know, in direct contrast to the sort of do-it-yourself feel of the columns project was the granite work. I mean, all through the bathrooms and the kitchen, really beautiful and a wonderful finishing touch. But it's about as far away from do-it-yourself as you can get because of all the specialized equipment necessary.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, if you take a step outside of the house and you look at it, it looks like it was meant to be here, like it's been here for hundreds of years. You wouldn't have thought that it was just built the other day.
Well, you know, the Williams may have a 10-second commute to work, but we don't, Robin. Let's get on to our next house, and we'll see you next time right here on Gimmie Shelter.
Bye-bye.